The sky was a dull gray, mirroring the heavy silence that hung over the small chapel. Ethan stood near the back of the room, clutching the cold wooden pew, trying to make sense of why he was here. Around him, mourners wiped tears and whispered prayers, faces he didn't recognize. Voices filled with grief he didn't fully understand. He barely knew the man in the coffin. This wasn't his father, the man who had raised him since infancy, who tucked him in at night, who wiped his tears and celebrated his birthdays. This was another man. A stranger. Someone who had existed in his life only as a name on a sealed envelope delivered hours ago by a lawyer's solemn voice. "You must come. It's important." That was all the message said. Ethan's heart pounded as memories collided with confusion. Why had no one ever told him about this man? How could he have been kept in the dark his entire life? His breath hitched as 1,000 questions burned in his chest. He felt like a ghost in his own story. His mind raced, his pulse quickening. What kind of father dies without a goodbye? Was this man truly his father? And if so, why had he been abandoned? The hollow ache inside Ethan's chest grew heavier with every silent second. He swallowed hard, fighting back the tears threatening to spill. Suddenly, a soft voice broke through the quiet. "Ethan, you don't know everything yet." He turned sharply, meeting the eyes of a woman he hadn't noticed before. Her face was etched with sorrow, but also something more, a secret she wasn't ready to reveal. "Who are you?" Ethan asked, voice barely steady. She hesitated, then pulled a small envelope from her coat pocket. "This was your father's last message to you." Ethan's hands trembled as he took the envelope. Inside, a letter written in hurried handwriting spilled out a truth that shattered the fragile foundation of his life. "If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I never had the courage to tell you who I really was or why I left. But you deserve to know the truth, Ethan. You are not who you think you are." Shock, disbelief, and a strange spark of hope tangled inside him. The funeral around him faded to a blur as Ethan's world tilted on its axis. How do you bury a past you never knew existed? And more importantly, how do you live with the truth once it's finally unearthed? Ethan Martin was an ordinary man by most standards, late 20s. Medium height, with a lean build that suggested he preferred quiet evenings over noisy crowds. His hazel eyes were striking, always alert, as if searching for something just out of reach. His dark brown hair was usually a little tousled, giving him an unintentional charm. But today, those same eyes held a cloud of uncertainty and sorrow. He grew up in a small suburban town with his adoptive parents, Linda and Mark Martin, who had given him a stable, loving home. Linda, a gentle woman with warm eyes and soft laughter, had been the rock of Ethan's world. Mark, tall and broad-shouldered, was a steady presence, never the most expressive, but always dependable. Together they had built a life full of family dinners, birthday celebrations, and childhood adventures. Ethan's childhood was a collage of happy memories, playing soccer in the backyard, weekend trips to the lake, and the comforting routine of school days filled with friends who knew him well. Yet, beneath the surface, there was always a faint whisper of longing. As a boy, he had asked his parents countless times about his birth parents, but they had gently steered the conversation away. "You're her son," Linda would say with a smile, "and that's all that matters." But for Ethan, it mattered deeply. Who was he really? Where did he come from? These questions labored in his mind like shadows. Now, standing in the funeral chapel, those shadows were creeping into the light. His life had taken a sudden turn. After years of quiet contentment, Ethan's world had fractured. The news of his biological father's death, the mysterious funeral, the cryptic letter, it all pulled him into an emotional storm he hadn't expected. Linda and Mark, though shaken, stood behind Ethan as pillars of support. Linda's eyes welled with tears as she squeezed his hand. "We've always loved you, Ethan. No matter what, that won't change." Mark, more reserved but firm, added, "We're here for you. You're not alone." Ethan appreciated their comfort but felt a growing distance. This new secret wasn't something they could fix with hugs or reassurances. There was also the woman from the funeral, the mysterious figure who seemed to know more than she let on. Her name was Claire, and she was connected to Ethan's biological father. Claire was in her early 40s with sharp features softened by kindness. Her voice trembled slightly when she spoke to Ethan, hinting at pain buried deep within. Claire had been a longtime friend, maybe more, of the man now buried. She held pieces of Ethan's past that no one else could offer, and her presence promised revelations that would challenge everything Ethan believed. Ethan's life before today was peaceful but incomplete. Raised in a loving home, he had built a future as a graphic designer in the city, working hard to make his mark. He had friends, a steady job, and plans for the future perhaps, even a relationship that was quietly blossoming. Yet, his sense of identity felt fragile, like a puzzle missing its centerpiece. The discovery of his biological father's funeral shattered that fragile piece. Suddenly, the past wasn't just a mystery, it was a looming force demanding answers. Ethan felt torn between gratitude for his adoptive parents and an irresistible urge to understand the man whose blood ran through his veins. His past was a closed book, written in shadows. His present was a maze of confusion and questions. At his core, Ethan valued honesty and connection. He believed in loyalty and trust, the very things that adoption and family secrets seem to complicate. His deepest goal was to find belonging, to understand where he truly came from, and to reconcile the two worlds he inhabited. But Ethan was also afraid. Afraid that learning the truth would alienate him from the only family he'd ever known. Afraid that his biological father's past might carry darkness secrets that could shatter his identity further. His internal conflict was clear. Should he pursue the truth at any cost, or protect himself by staying in the comfort of his adoptive family's love? This question would drive Ethan's journey, forcing him to confront painful emotions, make difficult choices, and ultimately redefine what family really meant. The days following the funeral were a blur for Ethan. The initial shock of the revelation left his mind in turmoil, but nothing could have prepared him for the storm that was about to hit. The first real conflict came unexpectedly, an argument that tore at the fragile thread connecting Ethan to his adoptive family. It started with a phone call. Linda's voice was shaky. "Ethan, we need to talk. It's about the letter. About your biological father." Ethan's stomach tightened. He had been avoiding facing the deeper truths, afraid of what he might find. But now, it was unavoidable. When Ethan arrived home, the atmosphere was tense. Mark was sitting at the kitchen table, his face lined with worry. Linda took a deep breath and said, "There's something you need to know. We've kept this from you because we wanted to protect you, but now it's time." Ethan's heart pounded. "What is it?" Mark looked at Linda, then back to Ethan. "We didn't just adopt you out of kindness. There's more to the story. Your biological father, he wasn't the man you think he was." The words hit Ethan like a blow. "What do you mean?" Linda's eyes filled with tears. "He had enemies, Ethan. Dangerous ones. We were afraid for your safety. That's why we kept you away." Confusion and betrayal surged through Ethan. The foundation of his entire life felt like it was crumbling. How could the people he trusted most hide something so big? Why hadn't they told him the truth sooner? His voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you lie?" Mark's expression hardened. "We didn't lie. We protected you. You have to understand that." But Ethan couldn't. Not yet. That night, Ethan lay awake, wrestling with the swirling emotions: anger at his adoptive parents, fear of the unknown dangers tied to his biological father, and a desperate need to find the truth on his own terms. Ethan's reaction was raw and unfiltered. The betrayal cut deep, leaving him numb and isolated. He felt caught between two worlds, the family that raised him and the bloodline he was just beginning to understand. His mind raced with unanswered questions. Who exactly was his biological father? What kind of danger had followed him? Was Ethan himself at risk? The conflict ignited a fierce determination within him, not just to learn the truth, but to reclaim control over his life. Yet, the more he sought answers, the more complicated things became. Claire, the woman from the funeral, reappeared at Ethan's doorstep days later. She carried more than just sympathy, she carried secrets. "I know it's overwhelming," Claire said softly, "but you need to hear what he left behind." She handed Ethan a small box, worn and locked. "This belonged to your father. Inside you'll find pieces of his past and maybe the reason he never reached out." Ethan's curiosity battled his fear. Opening that box meant stepping deeper into unknown territory, but refusing meant living in the shadow of unanswered questions forever. At the same time, a stranger began following Ethan, someone watching his every move, making anonymous threats. Suddenly, the danger his adoptive parents warned about didn't feel like a story anymore. It was real and looming. The nights had become Ethan's worst enemy. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment since the funeral, every whispered secret, every half-truth, every shadow that seemed to follow him. The box Claire gave him sat untouched on his desk, its locked lid a silent challenge. What was inside? Could he handle the answers? His mind was a battlefield of emotions. Part of him ached for the father he never knew, yearning to fill the gaps in his identity. Another part recoiled, terrified of what uncovering the truth might mean not just for him, but for those he loved. He was caught in a whirlwind of anger, betrayal, fear, and hope. Every conversation with Linda and Mark replayed like a broken record. Their fears about his safety now made sense, but their silence felt like a betrayal deeper than any secret. They protected me, he told himself, but at what cost? Ethan's heart was heavy with conflicting feelings, love for his adoptive parents, resentment for their deception, and curiosity for the man he never met. His trust was fractured, his identity uncertain. He questioned everything. Was he truly safe in the only home he'd ever known? What kind of man was his biological father, really? And what was the danger that lurked in the shadows? One evening, a text appeared on his phone from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." Ethan's breath caught. Was this connected to his biological father's past? Was someone watching him? His hands trembled as he locked the phone, eyes darting to the window. That same night, a cryptic voicemail played on his answering machine, a woman's voice, faint and trembling. He left a secret, something that could change everything. Find the truth before they silence you. The mystery deepened. Who were they? And what did Ethan's father leave behind that made people so desperate? Ethan stood at a crossroads. One path was the familiar but now fragile world of his adoptive family, safe, comforting, but built on partial truths. The other was the unknown, diving headfirst into his father's shadowy past, risking his safety, and possibly losing the people he loved. Could he afford to turn away? Could he live without answers? Or was the only way forward through the pain and danger of uncovering the truth? The weight of this decision pressed down on him, suffocating and relentless. As Ethan stared at the locked box once more, he realized that his choice would define him not just as a son, but as a man ready to face the consequences of his past. The moment Ethan finally opened the worn box from his biological father was one he would never forget. Inside, he found a bundle of letters, a faded photograph, and a small key taped beneath the lid. The photograph caught his eye, first his father, younger and smiling, standing beside a woman who looked eerily familiar. But the true shock came when Ethan unfolded one of the letters. The handwriting was hurried, almost desperate. "If you are reading this, it means I am gone. There's something you must know. Your real father was involved in something dangerous, something that cost him everything. But there is Mother. Mother is still alive. She left to protect you. And she wants to meet you. Use this key. It opens a safe deposit box at the old bank downtown. Inside, you'll find the truth." Ethan's hands shook as he reread the letter. His biological mother? Alive? After all this time? The revelation shattered the narrative Ethan had been piecing together. His father's death wasn't the end, it was only the beginning of a deeper, more complicated story. The twist hit Ethan like a tidal wave. For years, he believed his mother was out of the picture, either lost or abandoned. Now, suddenly, she was real, tangible, waiting somewhere to be found. His heart raced with a mixture of hope and fear. Could he trust this? What dangers might lie ahead if he sought her out? This new knowledge forced him to reevaluate everything: the lies, the warnings, even the love of his adoptive parents. Had they been protecting him from a shadowy past that involved not just his father, but his mother too? Ethan felt both empowered and vulnerable. The answers were within reach, but so were new threats he had yet to understand. The revelation sent ripples through Ethan's relationships. Linda and Mark were hesitant, their faces guarded when Ethan confronted them about the letter. We didn't know she was alive, Linda admitted, tears welling in her eyes. Your father kept many secrets. We thought it was safer for you not to know. Claire, the mysterious woman from the funeral, grew more enigmatic. She cautioned Ethan, meeting her could be dangerous. But you deserve to know the truth. Just be careful who you trust. Meanwhile, the shadowy figure following Ethan intensified his threats. The danger wasn't just about the pastet, was now knocking on his doorstep. Ethan found himself isolated in a web of half-truths and hidden motives. Who wanted to keep his mother hidden? And why? The night air was thick with anticipation as Ethan approached the old downtown bank. His heart hammered in his chest, every step echoing the weight of what he was about to uncover. The key from his father's box felt cold and heavy in his palm, a symbol of hope, fear, and unanswered questions. Inside the dimly lit bank lobby, Ethan made his way to the safe deposit box. As the lock clicked open, he pulled out a small envelope, its edges worn and stained. Inside, a single photograph and a letter awaited him. The photograph was of a woman young, radiant, with eyes so familiar they pierced his soul. The letter, written in the same hurried script as before, was from his biological mother. Ethan, if you found this, it means you are ready. I left to protect you from those who wanted to harm our family. Your father tried to shield you, but his enemies never gave up. Now, it's time for you to know the full truth. Meet me at the cafe where your father first told me he loved me. I will be waiting. Ethan's breath caught. The moment had come. At the cafe, the air was thick with tension. Ethan's eyes searched every face until they landed on a woman seated in the corner, nervous, yet determined. Ethan, she whispered, rising to meet him. I am Sarur's mother. The flood of emotions was overwhelming. Relief, anger, confusion. How could she disappear for so long? Why hadn't he reached out before? Before Ethan could ask, the door burst open. A man stepped in, shadowed and threatening. You shouldn't have come here, he growled. Ethan instinctively moved between Sarah and the man. Who are you? He demanded. The man's cold smile sent chills down Ethan's spine. Someone who wants to end what your father started. A struggle ensued, fraught with raw emotion and danger. Ethan fought not just for his life, but for the truth his parents tried to protect. At that moment, Ethan had a choice to run and hide, or to stand and fight for his family and future. With a surge of courage, he stood firm, determined to face whatever came next. The confrontation ended with the man retreating, but the message was clear: Ethan's life would never be the same. As adrenaline faded, Sarah reached out, her voice trembling. I'm sorry for everything. I left because I had no choice. But I'm here now, and I want to help you. Ethan looked into her eyes, seeing not just a stranger, but a piece of himself he had long sought. The storm of secrets, danger, and pain had reached its peak, but with it came the promise of healing. The days that followed the confrontation felt surreal to Ethan, like the world around him was shifting on an axis he hadn't known existed. The shadow of danger hadn't fully lifted, but the veil of mystery had begun to part. With Sarah's cautious help, Ethan started piecing together the fragments of his past. They uncovered documents, photographs, and stories that shed light on his biological father's secret fight against a corrupt syndicate, a fight that cost him his life and forced Sarah into hiding. Together, Ethan and Sarah approached the police with new evidence, igniting a series of investigations that finally exposed the men who had threatened their family. The tension that had haunted Ethan gradually eased, replaced by a cautious hope. The danger was real but no longer invisible. Through the journey, Ethan transformed from a young man overwhelmed by betrayal and uncertainty into someone who embraced the complexity of his identity. He learned that truth could be painful but was necessary for healing. His view of family expanded not just the people who raised him, but those bound by blood and shared history. Ethan understood that the past, no matter how dark, did not define his future. Back home, Ethan's relationship with Linda and Mark deepened. The pain of their secrecy was tempered by their love and protection. They admitted their mistakes, and Ethan found it in his heart to forgive. With Sarah, Ethan began building the relationship he had always longed for, filled with cautious hope and honest conversation. Claire, who had stayed by Ethan's side throughout, revealed her true identity as an old friend of his biological father, someone who had risked everything to keep him safe. Their bonds, though tested, emerged stronger. On a quiet morning, Ethan stood on the balcony of his childhood home, the sunrise painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. In his hands he held the photograph from the box, the image of his parents, once strangers, now part of his story. He smiled, feeling whole for the first time. The journey had been long and painful, but it had led him to a truth that was worth every tear and every fear. Ethan took a deep breath, ready to step forward not as the boy who didn't know his past, but as the man who had claimed his future.